We got it. All
Yep.
right.
Okay, so you want to stay on the phone?
Yes, sir. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine. It's really good now that can hook up here with you.
Where are you at today, sir?
I'm at home.
Good. Where is that?
Oh, that's Tuskegee.
Have you seen the Supreme Court decision today?
No.
Granted absolute immunity to presidents and presidential actions. They're immune from criminal prosecution.
So previous presidents,
And current.
I see. Okay. No, I haven't seen that.
We're doing 24 hours of hope and determination because we know that the American democracy is at stake this year. And you have been a mentor to us at Common Power, but you're being introduced right now to a lot of people. So we just wanted to ask you some questions and have you kind of tell us a bit about yourself and about your work and about this moment. So let's start here, please, with your commitment to nonviolence as a philosophy, as an idea, as a way of life. What is that? What do you mean by that, and why is it so important?
Well, first of all, I want to say what you're doing is what I have been working on and hoping that would happen continuously, for the last 50 years, because this is what we've been hoping would happen. And with this, the absence of what you're doing now would really be disastrous. But because of what you're doing now, we have hope that things will be able to change and you'll be able to accomplish the goals that we're trying to accomplish. So that's why you see the smile on my face, because you're doing exactly what I've been working towards all these years. Now, here's what we have to do. First of all, we don't lose hope, no matter what conditions surround us and what others do. We don't lose hope. And because we don't lose hope, we have every potential to make things, better for people. We have to be aware of the fact that the things that you're doing now were things that we were doing way back in the early, 50s, 60s, and that we have to know that the reason we're able to do what we're doing now is because of what was done back then. We have examples, and we also have the strength to do it. So one of the things I want to say is that don't give up and don't give in, okay? Because number one, if you don't understand your history, then your future is a mystery. Because we have to take what we have learned in the past and take the best of it and apply it to what we are facing today. And that's why I am so excited about what you are doing. And you need to be aware of the fact that you have every potential to succeed in what you're trying to do. But you first have to understand why people behave the way they do. And one of the reasons why people behave the way they do is because many times they do not know their history. It's a mystery to them. And what we're doing is sharing the history of the movement and how we were able to accomplish some things that we did accomplish. Now, I have to confess to you, I had no idea that we would be in the condition that we're in now. I thought we had solved many of the problems that we're dealing with now, but I found out we have not. So, if we have not solved the problems, you have to ask the question, why? And it's mainly because the people who are involved in the situations that we experience today are unaware of the consequence of their actions. And so what they have to do is have some appreciation for the fact that their behavior and their actions and the stance that they take will have consequences. And mainly on the young people who are going to be following behind us. They are going to be the ones that either benefit, okay, or either the people who are not fit to be able to make the world a better place. And see, more and more, what I've discovered is that our actions and behavior cannot simply be confined to our neighborhoods or our country, even. But our actions and the actions of other people will impact the world. It's global. It's much more global than we had in the past. Even though we had to deal with World War II and World War I and all that sort of thing, etc. I remember, okay, because I was a little boy and I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and I remember World War II. Yes, and there's some things that I can tell you. I lived down in the South, okay, and then I also lived in the North, up in Philadelphia, and I was a little boy, and I didn't live too far away when William Penn lost his shoe. It was a statue, of course, but I remember when William Penn's shoe dropped off. Okay, they had to restore it. So my point is that we live in a global society, and what we do affects not just our neighborhoods and no other kind of hoods, but it has effect on the globe. And I think that's one of the things that we have to start with. We are not just in a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing, our country. And that's the mystery that we have. We can make decisions about policies and laws and decisions that official groups make, you know, but those are temporary. It's a mystery to us. Why is it that things change the way they do? Why is it? Well, I've come to know that when people get into positions of power, it means two things. One is they have the wealth and access to the wealth, okay? And that can make a difference in terms of the number of people and who would take a certain position. Because too often people make decisions based on their access to wealth. That's what they do. They want to feel secure. But I happen to know, and other people sometimes forget, that there are no brink trucks in the funeral procession. And ultimately, okay, there where they will come. That they will come. No matter how much wealth people have, they won't be able to buy, okay, a lifetime any more than is given to them. Okay.
Dr. Lafayette, we are so glad that you are here. I have shown this periodically as we've been talking. So many of you, most of you know exactly who Dr. Bernard Lafayette is. Many of you have met him in person when we went to Tuskegee, Alabama to sit with you. This is your autobiography. There's a picture of you and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. there on the front. In many ways, that picture tells us so much about your past. You are the first person, the person who said, we're going to go to Selma. When people said, you don't need to go to Selma, you said, no, I want to go there. You helped start the voter registration there. You were part of the Nashville sit-in movement. You are a freedom rider. You were with Dr. King. You were his right-hand man. You are chairman of the board of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You have done so much and faced so much. Some of what's happening today may not surprise you in the way that it does some of us, because of all that you have seen. How in your life then, with the violence, you've had death threats, you've had so much, how have you remained hopeful? Because we see you and you talk about hope and inspiration. And with all that you have been through, you could have chosen a different path. So how have you remained hopeful? How do we remain hopeful?
Well, the reason I have remained hopeful is because of the practical experiences that I've had, even from childhood. And what I've done is decide that I'm going to not allow myself, okay, to be hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I always have hope. Like, for example, I know many people haven't heard this, but well, first of all, I know what something about death. And sometimes you can't really fully appreciate life unless you have some respect and appreciation for life. See, when I was 4 years old, I lost my brother, who was 4 months old.
Mm.
And I used to shake him in his bassinet on the front porch and sing to him. And when he left and was there no more in the bassinet, I still sang to him. But I felt that he would be able to hear it, even though he was not there anymore. So that's what I believe about music, by the way, that you're not the only one that can hear it. And really, because of recordings and things like that, people will continue to hear in many years to come, even after you're gone. So I love it. Okay. And my wife is here with me, and she's hearing everything that goes on, and she's so excited. And
Where's Miss Kate? We need to see Miss Kate
Miss
too,
Kate.
okay?
okay, come over here, Kate. They want to see you. Okay.
You have a nice green screen backdrop there, Bernard. Way to go.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's my if you had me on my Zoom computer, It would be bookcases.
Oh, it would be.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Hello.
nice.
Right.
Hello, Miss Kate.
Wonderful. I'm so proud of what you're doing. I'm just going to sit back down and listen all the way. Okay.
Thanks, Miss
I'm
Kate.
not going to take it, Bernard. I'm not going to take it.
Thank you. Okay.
You've got good
Yeah.
people there who want to take it and let them take it because he's hearing what they're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
So hope. I'll respond to that, and then we can go to the next question. So I have hope. Now, frankly, the thing that makes life worthwhile is the thing that's wow. Okay, and that's where the worth comes in. Wow things. Okay. Like, for example, I used to be, when I was a little boy, I was afraid of ghosts being under my bed at night. Oh my goodness, I couldn't sleep because I was afraid of ghosts. And I had people tell me, say, "Oh, listen, man, no such thing as no ghosts. You don't even talk about no ghosts under your bed, and you can't sleep." I said, "What do you mean, ghosts are not real? Well, why y'all go to church every Sunday talking about the Holy Ghost? There must be some unholy ghosts around too." So I decided that I was going to challenge the ghosts. Because, yeah, ghosts exist, but you can't go around being afraid of them. Okay. So, what I did to fight the fear of ghosts when I was a little boy, I decided that I would get off my bicycle and I would walk through the graveyard at night. Yeah. And that's how I was able to overcome the fear of ghosts. Until one time, I was walking through the graveyard at night, and a cat jumped out the tree, and I took off running. So I felt so embarrassed that I was afraid that was a ghost, and I went back and walked through that graveyard at night. But then I heard something moaning and groaning when one of the graves, open graves. So I took off running, and I turned around and came back and brushed the sand off my feet. Okay. And said, "I'm not going to be afraid of this ghost." I went back, and there was an open grave. And what happened is, a man was drunk, and he messed around walking through the graveyard, fell in the grave. So what did I do? I jumped in the grave, open grave, and helped him get out. So that's how you face fear. If you are afraid, face it.
Yeah.
That's what you do with fear. Face it.
Wow. How
And
old
you,
were you when you did that?
well, I was actually about 4 years old when I went to the graveyard. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. I was I used to sleep with my window open at night in case if a ghost needed a shelter. So that's how you handle ghosts. Instead of running from ghosts, you run to ghosts.
Wow.
Dr. Lafayette, I want to take you to a particular moment and ask you about running towards a very dangerous situation. In 1961, in May of 1961, the freedom rides that had been occurring that year had their bus bombed in Anniston, Alabama. Intergenerational group in Anniston, and the freedom rides were stopped. Groups were no longer getting on buses to try to desegregate the buses and the bus terminals. And you were part of a group in Nashville that was not on the bus at that moment. And you said, "We will continue," even though you knew that you could die, even though you knew that there was certain violence ahead of you. You made a decision along with others to continue the freedom rides, and you went to Birmingham, and then you went on to Montgomery, and eventually you go to jail, many of you. And Parchman Prison in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. But I want to go to one specific moment, if you, because like I find a lot of value in kind of trying to focus on a moment. In Montgomery, the capital of the Confederacy, the first capital, and then also the place that had been the place of the bus boycotts in 1955. Now we're in 1961. When you all came in on an integrated bus to Montgomery, there were hundreds of white people at the bus terminal there, who were there to beat you and to force you to not continue this journey. And they were probably going to kill you. Can you take us to that moment and what it was like in that moment and how you had the courage, you as a group and you in that moment, to do that?
Well, when we were growing up during that period in history, we didn't have a lot of cars, so we used the bus quite a bit for our means of travel back and forth. In fact, John Lewis and I had already desegregated the buses in the Christmas of 1960. And we were in Nashville, and we'd already desegregated the lunch counters at the dime stores and every other place, including the bus station. Now, in 1960, the Greyhound bus station lunchroom was desegregated.
Wow.
So that was already taken care of. But the buses weren't in certain places in the South. The buses were not desegregated. So John Lewis and I, we decided we're going to go home for Christmas and we're going to ride the bus. And we're not going to sit in the back of the bus. We're going to eat at the lunch counter in the Greyhound bus station. So we decided the two of us going to do it. And we did. And the bus driver got very upset when he couldn't make us go to the rear of the bus. And he got mad and he couldn't do anything. He went and tried to get some police help in the bus station and get his manager, and didn't succeed because nobody there in Nashville in the bus station, Greyhound bus station, would not pay attention to him. So I was sitting right behind the driver, and John Lewis was sitting over on near the door on the front seat. So this bus driver got up and he rammed his seat because it was on a rail, so he could slide his seat back and forth, close to the steering wheel, that kind of thing. And he rammed his seat right back so fast, and it stabbed a hole in my suitcase. I had a leather suitcase, and it would have been my leg if my suitcase hadn't been there. And I was just very fortunate that he didn't break my leg. Mm-hmm. And so, because I carried my suitcase with me because I didn't know whether we'd be thrown off the bus or whatever, and so I didn't want to be separated from my suitcase. As I was going to Florida, John Lewis was going down to Alabama, and so it was 11 o'clock at night. So when we got down to near Troy, he was expecting his family members to come and pick him up. It was pitch dark, and nothing was there. The bus station was also a gas station, and nobody was there. So I didn't know what was going to happen to John. So when I told him goodbye, I was thinking that, I might not see him again because he was being left alone. And I don't know what happened. Time the bus pulled off, about a block later, I thought about the fact that I was on the bus by myself with that driver. So Of course, I didn't sleep. No, no, no. I didn't get a chance to sleep. So I finally got on down to Florida, down to Tallahassee somewhere, and we were able to get off, change buses. But now, back to your point, in terms of the desegregation of buses, we were some of the first ones that applied. I
Mm,
couldn't go because my father wouldn't sign the permission letter.
mhm.
If you were not 21 years old, you had to get parental permission letters signed. And my father said that he was not going to sign my death warrant. So that's why I didn't go on the course, Freedom Ride, at that point. So I didn't go on the Freedom Ride until the Nashville group took over, because the core group decided they weren't going to go any further when the bus got burned in Anniston and people got beaten up in Birmingham, you know. So anyway, here we go. We were going from Montgomery, rather Birmingham, to Montgomery. Now we stayed in the bus station all night long. Every time we would try to leave the bus station in Birmingham and catch a bus going to Montgomery, no, the bus driver refused to drive. I remember, the bus driver said to me, all of us really, said, "How many of y'all from Co? Co? What's Co? No, ain't nobody here from Co." So then he said, "Well, how many of y'all from NWACP? NWACP, National White People's Organization? No, nobody from Co. And nobody from the NWACP." So, but the bus driver refused to drive us, you know. And I was in the bus station all night and I went to sleep. Because, we didn't get any sleep because every time a bus would be scheduled, it would come in on the way to Montgomery, we'd try to get on it. And we just stayed there in the waiting room. And you know what happened to me?
Hmm.
I was asleep and I woke up and this guy had thrown a cup of cold water in my face. This white guy. And he was dressed in a robe, white robe and white, yes, a Ku Klux Klan
Oh, geez.
outfit. Yeah.
Wow.
And I looked at him. He'd looked down at me because I was sitting on the bench and he was standing up and he threw that water on me and then he looked at me with some mean face, you
Mhm.
know, and I looked at him. So I had to make a decision. So in nonviolence, what you want to always do when people act hostile towards you, you want to reverse the situation. And the way you do that is that you act kind towards them. So you have to look them in the eye. Yes. So if you
Hmm.
got on shades, take your shades off if you got on shades, because your eyes are part of your, okay, power. And I looked at him and he looked at me. So he was expecting me to react in a very negative way. Somebody throw some cold water in your face while you're asleep. But instead, I looked at him and I looked around the bus station, the waiting room, and it was filled
Hmm.
with Ku Klux Klansmen,
Wow.
white robes. Only one person had on a black robe, and that was the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Had a black robe on. Yeah, with a serpent on the back. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, when I looked at that fellow throwing that water on me, I said to him with smiling eyes, I looked at him and I said, thank you.
Mm.
And I was thankful because I didn't need to be asleep in the bus station full of Klansmen. So that was a very important appreciation for me to be
How did
awake.
how did he react when you said thank you?
He he changed his attitude
Wow.
like he had made a mistake. Okay, he like he had done something wrong. Because so what you want to do in terms of nonviolence is show your opponent how you want to be treated. So by smiling at him and thanking him, it showed him another way to respond to that situation,
Mm-hmm.
not the way he expected me to respond.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So you have the power, and the power has to be in your particular response and what you're doing to transform the situation. Like in my book, you know, uh, the situation in Selma, Alabama. Yeah. But back to the Montgomery situation, when we it was a Saturday morning. And what happened was we had finally got a bus, and it was actually Robert Kennedy, okay, the Attorney General of the United States, who arranged to get that bus for us. And frankly, it was not a very well kept bus because we found out after we got on the bus, he didn't have a restroom. And they had not planned to stop in Montgomery when we got on the bus in Birmingham. That bus was expected to go all the way to New Orleans, nonstop. And we said, no, we want to stop in Montgomery.
Mhm.
The original, you know, a route of the Freedom Rides. You know, we didn't want to do that. So we wanted to stop in Montgomery. So anyway, um, the um, the bus did not stop in Selma, Alabama. Can you imagine that? It went through Selma nonstop. That's right. I learned that. We learned that later. Yeah, and there was a mob outside of Selma
Oh,
bus
wow.
station waiting on us. And this bus bypassed Selma, Alabama, went on down to Montgomery. Uh, but we told them, no, we don't want to go to New Orleans. We want to go to Montgomery. Okay. So we went to Montgomery, and it was a Saturday morning. And when we hit the city limits of Montgomery, the streets were clean. I mean, without people, no shoppers on Saturday morning. That's when people were out there in the street, you know, shopping and walking around and stuff like that, etc. Nothing. So we got suspicious. So I stood up. I was on the front seat of the bus there, coming down, and I stood there uh, on the front, and I said, "Now we don't know what's going to happen with this bus going into Montgomery now. So I want all of you, okay, and each of you to get a partner and stay with that person no matter what happens, so nobody will be left alone. And if things don't work out well, or we don't get our rides like we're supposed to, find your way to the church, because that's where we're going to have a meeting at 4 o'clock, okay, later on. And so stay with that person and go right to that church." So originally we were not going to go into that bus station, Montgomery. No, we were going to go to Montgomery bus station on the way out. Okay, because we didn't want to get arrested in Montgomery bus station before we could have a meeting with the masses of people in Montgomery. That was part of our strategy. But when we arrived, okay, our rides were not there. We don't know what happened to the drivers that were supposed to pick us up. There were a lot of, black cab drivers, and that came out of the Montgomery movement. So there were a lot of black cab companies, and they were supposed to be there to pick us up, to take us to the church, And there was only one cab driver. And that cab driver, when we arrived, and you know what happened when we arrived? The mob came out of the bus station doors. They didn't come towards us. That mob went straight to the reporters and the news people because they had gotten a bus and come ahead of us, and they were there to see us arrive, and they were going to, do their news, media, and stuff like that as we arrived. And the mob went straight towards those news people and beat them up, took their cameras and smashed them over their heads and everything, kicked people. And that's when they then turned around. After they beat up them, they turned around and started towards us. And they had a Coca-Cola crate and they hit John Lewis on the head. That's why that patches on his head. That was a Coca-Cola crate, but the metal, fastener around the Coca-Cola crate was the thing that hit him in the head, put that big scar on his head. Okay, yeah. Paul LaPrade, they picked him up and knocked him over the rail 5 times. It was only like 20 years ago that I explained to Paul LaPrade that he didn't know he'd been knocked over 5 times because the first time they hit him, they knocked him out. So he didn't know that all those years. So I explained to him, I was there, I observed it. And then they came after me. Okay. Then what do you do? Well, first of all, there were about 4 or 5 of them coming after me at the same time. So they were coming slowly, and I was backing up. And I was backing up to the point where there was a rail there on the bus station in the back, and it was a drop off from that rail, and cars were parked down there. So if they'd knocked me over that rail, I would have gone head first over there to those cars. And I knew that they were coming after me. So what happened is they had Brogang shoes, and I knew they were going to kick me in a certain place. So what I did was stood up and gave them the room, because and they got close enough. Then I bent down in front, and put my arms in front of each other. And they, instead of kicking me where they had planned to kick me, they kicked me in my ribs. So I ended up with 3 broken ribs. I went through the entire Freedom Rides from there with 3 broken ribs. Because there's nothing you can do with broken ribs. Okay? So all the rest of the jail stuff I went through, Jackson, Mississippi, and all those places, all that time, I had broken ribs. So I'll stop at this point and see if there are other questions.
Thank you so much, Bernard. We do have thank you. Just thank you.
Mhm.
Just thank you. Like, we're not even doing this event here in who we are as human beings, diverse as we are, without the courage of you, Mr. Malden, and others. I'm going to invite someone who's got a question, Faye Dansby, to come on, and I'm going to let's see if we can pin her up here as well to Terry or Ivory, if you could, or Carmen, if you could add Faye here so she could be on the screen as well. Faye is one of our educators for ambassadors, educators for democracy, a great program that we have at the Institute for Common Power. Folks who go on trips with us and get a chance to meet Mr. Lafayette and others. And so Faye has a question that she's going to ask you. Let's see, where's Faye at? Okay, hang on a second. Spotlight Faye. And hold on, I'm going to spotlight Dr. Lafayette too. There you go. Go ahead, Faye.
Thank you, Baba Lafayette and Queen Mother Kate for, it's an honor that you all would take time of your precious time to share with us today. So we just thank you for that first. But I would be remiss, being a daughter of Tuskegee graduates myself, to not ask this question of the curator, about the curator of nonviolent direct action for social justice, the late Reverend James Lawson. And if you could just share, because most of us that watched John Lewis's homegoing service and listened to Reverend Lawson that day, most of us haven't forgotten the words he said about you all out of Nashville. And if you could just share personally what Reverend Lawson meant to you personally.
Well, it was James Lawson who gave me my basic nonviolent philosophy. When I had a situation with my grandmother back in the Tampa, Florida, and I couldn't ever forget that. The streetcar ran right in front of our house on the tracks and had a cable car. And I used to travel with my grandmother everywhere she went. I used to run behind her. And she used to dress up really, really nice. She was a businesswoman. Though she finished the 3rd grade, she owned her own house. She built, apartment building, everything. She was something else, I can tell you right now. So I used to go around with her. Oh, I have to tell you this. She used to talk to sometimes 5 lawyers in one day. And what she would do is make an appointment with the lawyer, ask a bunch of questions, and then tell him that she would get back with him. And then she would have that information, go to another lawyer, same day, and ask a bunch of questions and see what the response would be. And by the time she talked to 5 lawyers, hey, she could be a judge. Yeah. So she was so smart. I tell you, I really, have to give her credit. And whatever I know, I have to say she did. Anyway, we used to have to put our money and deposit it in the coin machine in the front of the trolley. Then we had to get off the trolley at the front door and walk along the tracks to the back door of the streetcar, we called it. And that's how we got on, if you were Black. And there was a rubberized curtain, okay, right behind that step. So you only had a number of seats in the back of the trolley. So we would, I used to run and jump on the steps of the trolley to keep the door from closing, because sometimes the conductor would take your money in the front door, and while you were walking on the streets to the back door, he would close the door, fold up the steps, and take off with your money. So I used to, as a little boy, I was 7 years old, and I used to run to the back and jump on the steps. As long as you can keep the steps down, you can keep the door open. My grandmother was running one time behind me, and her high heel shoes got caught in the cracks around the track. Boom! She went straight down the middle of the street. She weighed about 300 pounds. And I jumped off that step and what happened was she I couldn't pick her up because so I tried. I made an effort. Okay. So I made a gesture and I couldn't do it. And I said to myself, and I remember that when I get grown, I'm going to do something about this problem. So it was always on my mind to do something about public transportation and desegregating it since I was a little boy. So I always tried to find a way to make a difference in terms of the segregation and things like that that made a difference. Now, it was Jim Lawson that helped me understand how to put together the theology and the philosophy of nonviolence. Now, when I went to school at American Baptist College in Nashville, my grandmother had found, work scholarship because I had gotten a full scholarship to Florida A&M in journalism. Because in high school, our class, that year, I was the editor of the newspaper, the Miltonian, because I went to Milton High School. We won first place in the state of Florida. I was the editor of the newspaper as a high school student. I got full scholarship, everything. My grandmother said, no, you're not going to be no journalist. Okay, you're going to be a preacher. I said, oh my goodness, grandmama, gonna be a preacher? Yeah. She said, yeah, you're going to be a preacher. I said, well, and she went and found me a scholarship to the American Baptist College. Yeah. And she said the mark was in my forehead. And I used to stay in the mirror looking for this mark in my forehead. The only mark I saw was where I used to have the chicken pox, But my grandmother said I was going to be a preacher. And so that's how I ended up in Nashville at American Baptist College. John Lewis was ended up as my roommate. Okay. And so anyway, I had a job on campus. And John Lewis said, we talk about this stuff all the time at night. Said, come on to the the workshops. I say, workshops? What are you talking about working? I got how many jobs I got? I was the assistant librarian. And the librarian became a pregnant, expectant mother. And I was the assistant librarian. Sometimes I used to spend the night in the library. I used to, some of the job, janitor of the second floor, librarian, and I used to volunteer to wash the pots in the kitchen because I love to get that collard greens and the pot liquor that's left over, So I used to do that free. Anyway, John Lewis convinced me to go. I said, well, I'm going just to so he could shut his mouth. I went there and Jim Lawson turned me around. I understood what nonviolence was all about and how you can take this and be able to apply it to different kinds of situations, not just in terms of racial discrimination, but how do you turn situations around, like the one I did in the bus station with the guy throwing the water on me. You have to be in control of yourself if you're going to control a situation. So that's what Jim Lawson was able to. I give you one example, and then you can ask me other questions about Jim Lawson, and I can talk about him as much as you want. We were bringing up the rear. In other words, when we went to sit in at the lunch counters downtown in Nashville, sometimes we were attacked after the demonstration was over, and we returned to the church, particularly when we didn't get arrested. And those who were bringing up the rear were those who would walk backwards so that the other people in line would not get attacked from the back, from the rear. So Jim Lawson and I were bringing up the rear. And this guy, who was probably, they call him hoodlums, he came up behind us and he spat on Jim Lawson. Yeah, spat on his clothes. And I'm walking there alongside of him, and he's my teacher. And you know what he did? He asked the guy who spat on him if he had a handkerchief.
Wow.
And this gang member, because the rest of his gang, they had almost peeled off by then because we were getting close to the church. This gang member that pulls out a doggone handkerchief and hands it to Jim Lawson. Jim Lawson said, "Thank you." He wiped the spit off his clothes with the fellow's handkerchief and handed it back to him. And they were carrying on this conversation about some cylinders and whether or not he had a motorcycle or whether a hot rod or whatever, and Jim Lawson knew about these kind of vehicles and things. I didn't know about no, cylinders and, any kind of motorcycles and stuff like that. And this fella got almost up to the church, and the rest of his gang had peeled off, and he was still walking behind us talking to Jim Lawson. He was so excited in the conversation. And I saw him. He had a black leather jacket on, and he had his name on the jacket. Danny. I remember that. I learned from that situation several things.
Wow.
One is you have to demonstrate, that's what demonstrate means, how you want to be treated. And the way you demonstrate that is how you treat others. You give them the example of what you want to see happen to you. You have to show them. Okay?
Thank you,
So-
Baba. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Powerful. It's been an honor. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Can you, Bernard, share with us as a last main piece of your time with us, the experience in the jail in Mississippi where you all were arrested on the Freedom Rides and put into jail? And also, would you be willing to take us to the point of sharing the song that you all would create too? It would be an incredible thing for us to go out with, sir.
Oh, very well. Okay. Oh, I should tell you this before I forget. David Dumke, okay?
Yes.
I love to do this.
Man, you and we're gonna ride with you. Remember, we got a deal. You stay healthy, we're gonna keep riding with you, right?
Okay. So here's what we want to say about the jail. We have opportunity once we were in jail in Jackson, Mississippi, we were on the Freedom Rides. And when we got to Jackson, Mississippi, when you walked into the waiting room, you were told to move on. And if you didn't move on out of that white waiting room, you'd be arrested. Okay? So there was a pattern that was set. I was with the first group that went in. And sure enough, we were arrested. And as I mentioned to you, we did not have, a restroom on the bus. Yeah, that's right. We didn't have a restroom on the bus. So some people were arrested in the restroom. Okay. So they had to be handcuffed and stuff like that, etc. So anyway, in jail, we were in the city jail, and they had other inmates there, other black inmates, and as well as other white inmates. We were all separated, and the girls were separated from the boys, of course. So they had a complete division within the prison there. And I remember when they went to take CT and I were up in the same jail cell, and when we first got arrested,
Reverend C.T. Vivian, right?
CT,
C.T. Vivian.
yeah, CT Vivian, from Nashville, and he was at the American Baptist College, but he was sort of a graduate student, but he was also my professor with Kelly Miller Smith.
Wow.
Senior, yeah. So here I was in jail with my professor. Okay, it was great, and we were very close together. We our birthdays were only one day apart, and we used to end up doing puns all the time. So we had that thing going all the time, and even after many years later, after the freedom rides. But so the jailer came to take us down to our trial, and CT told him, "Say, wait just a minute. Say, we are not ready to go yet because we're in the midst of doing puns." So the jailer didn't know what a pun was, so he waited there for a moment, and because he had turned the lock on the jail door to take us out, he said, and CT told him, "Say, we're doing a pun now. We can't go." So the jailer looked at us. So I think CT said, "Give me a pun." I said, "Upon what subject?" He said, I said, "The king, like the King of England or something." He said, "A king is not a subject." Okay. So that's not you know, that's a pun within itself. A subject, okay, and a king. So we were going back and forth with that kind of stuff. So anyway, the jailer came when we were all getting ready to leave because we had to go to trial and come back and everything. And so we started singing because we knew that other freedom riders were coming. And we were up on the third floor of the city jail, and we could see the highway. So we could see the Greyhound bus when it came, and more people coming. So we told the jailer that buses were coming. And so we started singing a song, you know. Buses are a-coming, oh yes. Buses are a-coming, oh yes. Buses are a-coming, buses are a-coming, buses are a-coming, oh yes. The jailer said, "Y'all stop all that hollering here. This ain't no playhouse. It's a jailhouse." Oh, the jailhouse. Okay. We said, "Loaded with those freedom riders. Oh, yes. Loaded with those freedom riders. Oh, yes. Loaded with those freedom riders. Loaded with those freedom riders. Loaded with those freedom riders." The jailer said, "All right, damn it. I hear one more peek at you, buggers. I'm going to what did he say he was gonna do? He said he was gonna take our mattress. And you know the mattress they had a twin mattress. That's what we had to sleep on. And two of us on the same twin mattress. Head to foot, in other words. Your head down here and the other's a foot down there. And then there was an invisible line that went between us as we slept on the mattress. Okay? So we didn't want those mattresses anyway. We said, "You can take our mattress. Oh, yes. You can take our mattress." Oh, he said, "Done it." He said, "If I hear one more peek at you boogers, I'm going to take your toothbrushes." And everybody started singing, "You can take out." We said, "Wait a minute, hold it. Can't take our toothbrushes." Because, you know, how are we going to sing and be blowing on each other without toothbrushes? So we had to think that one through. So I came up with the idea. I don't mind saying it. I said, "Okay, I want everybody to take the middle part of your lip and put together. Okay? Let the corners of your lip come out. So that way the air can go to the side, okay, in the middle. That means you can sing with less air. Can you imagine it? You can sing and you don't have to use all of the air." And we said to him, "You can take our toothbrush. Oh, yes. You can take our toothbrush. Oh, yes. You can take our toothbrush. You can take our toothbrush. You can take our toothbrush. Oh, yes. We will keep our freedom. Oh, yes. We will keep our freedom. Oh, yes. We will keep our freedom." And we got the mattress and the toothbrushes and everything and pile them up and push them out of the cell. Okay. The main thing there is you always respond when people want to punish you in a positive way. But nevertheless, if their intentions are negative, you make sure that your actions are peaceful and positive. Always have a positive response to a negative behavior. Show people how you want them to behave by behaving yourself in that way. So you have to use your imagination. When we got to the county jail, we had classes. And what we did was if you were a biology major, you were responsible for a lecture one day, and then another person, okay, responsible for chemistry or English major or whatever. And so we had class. We were college students, and we had college classes. Yeah. Some of our professors were there, like CT. And so what happened is we would do that, and then we would sing. Yeah, we would sing, and we would put the warden's name in the song. Yeah.
Mm.
And you know what happened? See, the warden was sitting there, and he had this eating his ice cream. He was sending the trustees out to get him an ice cream, and he would sit up there and watch TV, black and white TV, with the coat hanger as an antenna. So you know what he did? He heard our songs, and he got his trustees. Trustees were the inmates who you could send out and buy things, and then they would come back. That's what you call them, trustees. You can trust them, okay? And that's what that warden did. The white warden, of course, he had a daughter who was in the 11th grade, and we showed him how to send out forms and applications and stuff like that, and financial aid, and helped him get his daughter into college.
Mm.
Guess what? We were in college. We were in jail, but hey, we were still in college. So we taught him. So what we did with the jailer, instead of getting the antagonistic and arguing with him and fight, that kind of thing, that jailer sent his trustees out and bought each of us, Freedom Riders, a pint of ice cream every night. The trustees would go out and get the ice cream, put it in a mop bucket with rollers on it, throw the dry mop on top of the bucket, all right, and roll it down till they get to our cell block. We would reach through the bars and get our pint of ice cream and put the paper back in the mop bucket. That was in the county jail in Mississippi. That was how the original Freedom Riders who went through got treated.
Mm.
Again, nonviolence means winning people over, not winning, okay, over people.
Dr. Bernard, we are so grateful for our time with you. I'm going to bring in, as a close to this portion of our 24-hour Zoom, Charles Douglas, our executive director. Charles, of course, has been spending some chunk of time with you, and you two been talking and getting to know each other pretty darn well. And anyways, I'm going to hand it off to you two to close it up.